What if the secrets to growing a thriving vegetable garden were buried in the past, hidden in the time-tested traditions of Native American farmers? Imagine a world where the soil wasn't just a plot of earth, but a living partner in a relationship built over generations. Well, these secrets are no longer buried. They're ready for you to discover and use in your garden today. For centuries, Native Americans have nurtured the land, cultivating the crops that sustained entire communities. Their methods were not just about planting seeds and waiting for them to grow. They had an intimate understanding of the Earth's rhythms, the phases of the moon, and the natural companions that plants form in the soil. Their gardening wisdom was passed down through the generations, and in every seed, there's a story of survival, innovation, and respect for the land. In today's world, we've often forgotten the old ways, opting for quicker fixes and relying on chemicals instead of working with nature. But what if, instead of reaching for the store-bought solutions, we turn to those age-old practices? What if we took a moment to slow down and listen to the stories that the soil is still telling us? This is where Native American gardening hacks come in. From the iconic Three Sisters planting method to creating pollinator-friendly habitats, these ancient techniques are just as relevant today as they were centuries ago. With just a little understanding and effort, you can revive these practices in your own garden, bringing not only better yields, but a deeper connection to the earth beneath your feet. Let's take a journey into the past and learn how to bring a bit of Native American ingenuity and sustainability into your vegetable gardening. Get ready to discover gardening hacks you'll wish you knew sooner. 1. Three Sisters gardening. One of the most iconic and time-tested gardening techniques passed down from Native American tradition is the Three Sisters method. This practice involves growing 3 key crops, corn, beans, and squash, together in a single planting space. The beauty of this method lies not only in its simplicity, but in the harmonious relationship between the plants, which work together to create a thriving ecosystem. In traditional Native American farming, the Three Sisters were planted in mounds, often referred to as hills. Corn is planted first, as its tall stalks provide a natural structure for beans to climb. The beans, in turn, have a unique ability to fix nitrogen in the soil, enriching it for all the plants. This process naturally fertilizes the soil, reducing the need for synthetic fertilizers. Finally, squash is introduced to the mix. The broad leaves of the squash plant create a protective mat over the soil, helping to retain moisture, suppress weeds, and keep the ground cool. This practice not only benefits the plants, but also conserves water, reduces labor, and improves the health of the soil. It's a sustainable, efficient way to grow 3 staple crops with minimal effort. Historically, the Three Sisters method was not just about increasing crop yields, but also about fostering a sense of community. Native American tribes viewed their gardens as a reflection of balance and mutual support, much like in life, where when one element thrives, all others benefit. Corn, beans, and squash each give something back to the soil and one another. Corn provides vertical space for beans to climb, beans fix nitrogen into the soil, and squash shields the earth, conserving moisture. Together, they create a garden that is self-sustaining and interdependent, nurturing the soil while providing nourishment in both the literal and metaphorical sense. For modern gardeners, the Three Sisters method is still incredibly relevant. If you're limited by space, this technique is a perfect way to grow 3 different crops in the same area. Corn and beans take up vertical space, while squash sprawls across the ground, making it ideal for smaller gardens or even container gardening. This is especially beneficial for those with limited gardening space or for people practicing urban farming. The interconnectedness of the plants also makes this system less dependent on chemical fertilizers and pesticides, offering an eco-friendly approach to growing food. The Three Sisters teach us important lessons about interconnectedness, sustainability, and respect for the land. By nurturing these plants together, you're not only following an ancient practice, but also supporting biodiversity and soil health in your own garden. The method honors the natural balance and reciprocity that Native Americans have long understood, creating a gardening system that nourishes both the plants and the gardener. 2. Planting by the moon. While we tend to rely on calendars for the best planting days, Native Americans had a much more celestial approach to timing their gardening. They planted by the moon. The phases of the moon were believed to have a direct influence on plant growth, with the lunar cycles guiding when to plant, cultivate, and harvest. This method isn't just old folklore, it's based on centuries of observation and the deep connection Native Americans had with the rhythms of nature. The moon's cycles are divided into 4 main phases: the new moon, waxing moon, full moon, and waning moon. Each phase carries a different energy that affects plant growth in various ways. For example, the new moon is seen as an ideal time for planting root crops, like potatoes and carrots. The energy during this phase is believed to be directed downward, encouraging strong root development. Root crops, which grow beneath the soil, benefit from this energy, helping them establish deep, healthy roots. During the waxing moon, when the light is increasing, above-ground plants like beans, corn, and squash are believed to thrive. The rising energy promotes leaf and fruit growth, making it an ideal time to plant and cultivate these crops. The waxing moon encourages upward growth, supporting plants that produce fruits, flowers, and vegetables. The full moon represents a time of peak energy. Many Native American tribes believe that plants harvested during this phase were the most potent, with their nutrients and medicinal properties at their highest. The full moon is also an ideal time for sowing seeds, as the moon's energy is thought to stimulate strong, abundant growth. On the other hand, the waning moon, when the light decreases, is a time for tasks like weeding, thinning, and pruning. The energy during this phase is withdrawing, making it less stressful for plants to undergo pruning or removal. Gardeners can use this time to tend to their plants without disrupting their growth cycle. For modern gardeners, planting by the moon may seem like an added layer of complexity. However, many find that aligning their planting schedule with the lunar phases leads to healthier plants, better yields, and less work overall. By tuning into nature's rhythms and planting in harmony with the moon, gardeners can see improvements in plant vitality and growth. Incorporating moon phases into your gardening routine doesn't require an elaborate system. A simple lunar calendar or even a phone app can help you plan your planting and harvesting days, ensuring you work with, rather than against, the natural cycles that have guided gardeners for centuries. 3. Natural mulching. When you think of mulch, you might picture bags of wood chips or plastic sheeting from the garden store. But Native Americans had a much more sustainable, natural approach to mulching their gardens. Rather than relying on synthetic materials, they used what was available to them in the environment: leaves, grass, straw, pine needles, and even fish guts. These organic materials not only protected the soil from erosion and extreme temperatures, but also helped retain moisture, enrich the soil, and suppress weeds. The main purpose of mulch is to create a protective layer over the soil. Native Americans understood that soil health was the foundation of a successful harvest. By using natural mulching materials, they were able to keep the soil cool during hot summers and insulate it from freezing temperatures during the winter. This kept the soil's moisture levels consistent, preventing the land from drying out during droughts or being washed away in heavy rains. A good mulch also serves as a slow-release fertilizer. As organic matter breaks down, it adds valuable nutrients, like nitrogen and phosphorus, back into the soil, promoting healthy plant growth. This practice aligns perfectly with modern organic gardening principles, where the goal is to nourish the earth while reducing the need for synthetic chemicals. Native Americans also used mulch to create microclimates in their gardens. By layering straw or leaves around their plants, they created a shaded, humid environment ideal for crops like squash, beans, and corn. This helped the plants grow in a healthier, more balanced way without the stress of extreme weather conditions. For modern gardeners, the benefits of mulching are still very relevant. You can mimic Native American practices by collecting fallen leaves, grass clippings, or even straw from your yard to use as mulch. Not only will this save you money, but it will also help your garden become more self-sustaining. Just be sure to use materials that won't rob your soil of nutrients, like fresh grass clippings, which can sometimes be too rich in nitrogen. By following in the footsteps of Native American gardeners, you can create a thriving garden that is in harmony with nature, reducing your reliance on store-bought fertilizers and improving the long-term health of your soil. 4. Companion planting with herbs. If you've ever found a patch of basil growing alongside your tomatoes or marigolds next to your beans, you've seen the power of companion planting. Native Americans were masters at understanding which plants worked well together in the garden, and they used this knowledge to ensure healthy crops and abundant harvests. But it wasn't just about productivity. It was also about nurturing plants in a way that respected the natural relationships between them. One of the key principles of companion planting is the idea that certain plants benefit one another. For example, beans are known for their ability to fix nitrogen in the soil, which helps nourish other plants nearby. Planting beans alongside corn, as in the Three Sisters method, is a perfect example of this synergy. But Native Americans didn't stop there. They also recognized that some plants had the ability to repel pests and disease, while others attracted beneficial insects. Herbs played an essential role in this ecosystem. Native American gardeners often planted herbs like sage, mint, and thyme among their vegetables to help with pest control and improve flavor. Sage, for example, is known for its ability to repel cabbage moths, while mint helps keep aphids and ants at bay. These herbs not only serve practical purposes, but also added medicinal and culinary value to the garden, making them an invaluable part of native and agricultural practices. If you're looking to incorporate companion planting into your own garden, start by considering the relationships between the plants you want to grow. For instance, planting basil near tomatoes can help improve the flavor of the tomatoes while deterring pests like mosquitoes and aphids. Marigolds are another great companion plant, known to repel nematodes and other soil-borne pests. Similarly, planting onions near carrots can help keep the carrot fly away. Modern gardeners can benefit from these age-old techniques by reducing the need for chemical pesticides and fertilizers. By carefully choosing companion plants that work together, you'll create a balanced, healthy garden that nurtures both plants and pollinators. And just like Native Americans, you'll find that your garden becomes a place of both productivity and harmony. 5. Building raised beds the native way. Raised beds are a popular gardening method today, but they're far from a modern invention. Native Americans were using similar techniques for centuries, though they may not have had the lumber and nails we use today. Instead, they built mounds of earth, known as hills, to plant their crops. These raised mounds provided better drainage, warmth, and aeration for the roots, creating an ideal environment for plants to thrive. One of the main advantages of raised beds or mounds is that they promote good drainage. Native Americans understood the importance of water management. Too much water can lead to root rot, while too little can stunt growth. By building raised mounds, they ensured that excess water would drain away from the roots while still allowing moisture to reach the plants. This was particularly important in areas with heavy rainfall or poor drainage. Raised beds also have the added benefit of warming the soil. The mound shape allows the sun to heat the soil more evenly, which is especially helpful in cooler climates or early in the growing season. The warmth encourages faster germination and strong root development, making it easier to get crops off to a strong start. Similarly, raised beds can help extend the growing season, allowing gardeners to plant earlier in the spring and harvest later in the fall. In addition to these practical benefits, raised mounds were also used by Native Americans to create microclimates. By stacking soil higher in certain areas, they could create environments that were warmer or cooler, depending on the needs of the plants. This is a technique that can still be applied today, whether you're gardening in a small backyard or in a more expansive plot of land. For modern gardeners, creating raised beds can be as simple as mounding soil or using materials like rocks, wood, or recycled materials to create borders. Raised beds also help prevent soil compaction, making it easier for plant roots to grow deep and strong. Whether you're growing vegetables, flowers, or herbs, raised beds provide an efficient, sustainable solution that harkens back to the wisdom of Native American gardening practices. 6. Fish emulsion fertilizer. If you've ever struggled with finding a natural way to fertilize your garden, the traditional Native American practice of using fish as fertilizer might just be the answer. Native Americans understood that the land, plants, and animals were all interconnected, and they utilized this connection to nourish their crops. One of the most ingenious methods they used was burying fish in the soil to enrich it with essential nutrients. Fish are incredibly nutrient-rich, particularly in nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, three key elements for healthy plant growth. Native American gardeners would bury whole fish, often along with the seeds, in the soil to ensure that the plants had everything they needed to thrive. Over time, the fish decomposed, releasing these nutrients into the surrounding soil. This created a self-sustaining natural fertilizer that was both effective and environmentally friendly. Fish emulsion, which is a liquid fertilizer derived from fish parts, works on the same principles. It's made by processing fish, usually fish parts that aren't used for food like the bones, heads, and guts, breaking them down into a concentrated liquid form. This liquid is rich in the nutrients that plants need, especially during the early stages of growth. Using fish emulsion as a fertilizer is an excellent way to provide your garden with the nutrients it needs without relying on synthetic chemicals. It's particularly effective for promoting strong, healthy plant growth in vegetables, fruits, and flowers. Plus, it's a great way to recycle fish waste, which would otherwise be discarded. For modern gardeners, fish emulsion is available in most garden centers, making it easy to incorporate into your gardening routine. You can dilute the liquid fertilizer with water and apply it directly to the soil, or use it as a foliar spray to nourish plants from above. Just be sure to follow the instructions on the bottle to avoid over-fertilizing your plants. By using fish emulsion, you're not just giving your plants a boost, you're also honoring a time-honored Native American tradition that respects the cycles of nature and promotes sustainability. 7. Creating pollinator habitats. One of the most profound lessons that Native American gardeners taught us was the importance of cultivating a thriving ecosystem. The key to this, of course, was the pollinator, the bees, butterflies, birds, and insects that make our gardens come alive. In traditional Native American gardens, attracting pollinators wasn't just an afterthought, it was a central feature of garden design. Their knowledge of which plants attract beneficial pollinators and how to foster diverse ecosystems can still be applied today. Pollinators play a critical role in the reproduction of many plants, including fruits, vegetables, and flowers. Without them, many crops would fail to produce seeds or fruit. Native Americans understood this and cultivated gardens designed to provide habitat and food for pollinators. They planted a variety of flowering plants, herbs, and trees that bloomed at different times of the year, ensuring that pollinators had a steady food source throughout the growing season. Today, you can replicate this wisdom by intentionally planting for pollinators in your own garden. Native flowers are particularly effective at attracting local pollinators, and many of these plants have evolved alongside native insects, making them more attractive and beneficial than non-native species. Plants like coneflowers, sunflowers, and lavender are known to draw in bees, while milkweed is a favorite of monarch butterflies. Even simple wildflowers like clover and goldenrod can play a vital role in building a pollinator-friendly habitat. Incorporating these plants into your garden not only supports pollinators, but also creates a more resilient and biodiverse ecosystem. You can further encourage pollinators by avoiding pesticides, which can harm beneficial insects, and by planting in clusters to create easily accessible food sources. To make your garden even more attractive to pollinators, consider adding water sources like small bird baths or shallow trays with rocks for bees to land on. By intentionally designing your garden to support pollinators, you're not only helping your plants grow, but also playing a part in maintaining the delicate balance of nature. Like the Native American gardeners before you, you can create a space where plants and pollinators coexist and thrive. 8. Water conservation with traditional techniques. Water, one of the most precious resources in gardening, was something Native American gardeners knew how to use wisely. In many regions, access to water was limited, so they developed techniques to ensure every drop counted. These water-saving practices weren't just born out of necessity, they were a reflection of their deep respect for the environment and their understanding of how to work with it. One of the most important traditional water conservation techniques Native Americans used was the method of dry farming. This involved planting drought-tolerant crops and using soil management practices that minimized water loss. Crops like squash, beans, and corn, which thrive with minimal water, were commonly used. These plants, once established, require relatively little water, making them ideal for dry conditions. Native Americans would also plant these crops in mounds to improve drainage, ensuring that any rainwater that did come was efficiently absorbed into the soil. Another technique was the creation of swales, shallow water-catching ditches or embankments designed to capture and direct rainwater into the soil. This method helped slow the flow of water during heavy rains, allowing it to seep deep into the earth rather than running off and being wasted. These swales were often built along the contours of the land, making the most of the natural landscape to prevent erosion and conserve water. Incorporating these traditional water-saving techniques into your modern garden can be simple and effective. To start, you can use mulch, straw, leaves, or even grass clippings to cover the soil, which helps retain moisture and prevents evaporation. Raised beds or mounds, similar to the ones used in Native American gardens, can also help with drainage and water retention. Additionally, installing rain barrels to capture runoff water is an excellent way to make use of natural rainfall, reducing your reliance on tap water for irrigation. In the modern world, where droughts are becoming more common, the lessons learned from Native American gardening practices are more relevant than ever. By adopting their water conservation methods, you can reduce water waste, promote sustainability, and help your garden flourish even in the driest conditions. 9. Permaculture principles. Permaculture, short for permanent agriculture, is a design philosophy that focuses on creating sustainable and self-sufficient ecosystems. While it's a term that has only become popular in modern times, its roots can be traced back to Native American farming practices. Native Americans had an innate understanding of how to work with nature, and many of their gardening principles align perfectly with what we now call permaculture. At the core of permaculture is the idea of working with the land rather than against it. Native American gardeners understood that the land was not something to be tamed or controlled, but rather something to be nurtured. They worked to create systems where plants, animals, and the environment could coexist symbiotically. This holistic approach is evident in their methods, from companion planting to crop rotation, all of which contributed to healthy and sustainable gardens. One principle of permaculture that Native Americans practiced was the concept of zone planning. They would design their gardens in a way that mimicked natural ecosystems, with the most labor-intensive plants near the house and the less demanding plants farther away. This created a natural flow within the garden, where each section served a different purpose, and each plant had its place in the system. Another important permaculture principle that Native Americans embraced was diversity. Instead of planting a monoculture, which can deplete the soil and make crops more vulnerable to pests and disease, they planted a variety of crops together. The three sisters, corn, beans, and squash, are a prime example of this approach, where the crops work together to create a balanced and resilient ecosystem. Modern gardeners can adopt these permaculture principles in their own yards by planting a variety of crops, creating diverse habitats for wildlife, and working to improve the soil and water systems naturally. This can be done by planting native species, using organic practices, and creating systems that minimize waste and maximize efficiency. By doing so, gardeners can create gardens that are not only productive, but also sustainable, just like the gardens of Native American ancestors. 10. Native soil management. For Native Americans, the health of the soil was sacred. They understood that the land was a living, breathing entity that required care and respect. This understanding was the foundation of their gardening practices, and it directly influenced how they cultivated the land. Soil management was about more than just growing crops. It was about maintaining the soil's fertility year after year, ensuring that it remained healthy and productive. One of the key methods Native Americans used to manage their soil was crop rotation. By changing the types of crops planted in a particular area each season, they prevented the soil from becoming depleted of specific nutrients. For example, corn, beans, and squash were often rotated as each plant contributed different nutrients to the soil. Corn, for instance, is a heavy feeder and requires a lot of nitrogen, while beans have the ability to fix nitrogen in the soil. This kept the soil balanced and fertile, reducing the need for artificial fertilizers. Another technique used was the application of organic matter to improve soil quality. Native Americans would use fish, animal manure, and plant matter to enrich the soil. Fish, in particular, was often buried alongside crops, where it would decompose and release essential nutrients. This natural fertilizer promoted strong, healthy plants without the use of harmful chemicals. Mulching was also a vital component of soil management. Native Americans used a variety of materials, such as leaves, straw, and grass, to cover the soil around their plants. This helped retain moisture, prevent erosion, and keep the soil temperature stable. It also added organic matter to the soil as it decomposed, further enriching it for the next planting season. Today, modern gardeners can learn a great deal from these traditional soil management practices. By rotating crops, using organic matter, and mulching, you can create a thriving garden that remains productive year after year. Rather than relying on synthetic fertilizers and pesticides, these natural methods promote long-term soil health, reduce waste, and create a more sustainable gardening system. Like Native Americans before us, we can work with the land to ensure that it continues to provide for future generations. 11. Wild edibles in the garden. One of the most enduring gifts Native Americans gave to modern gardening is their knowledge of wild edibles. For centuries, they relied not only on cultivated crops, but also on the wild plants that grew around them for food, medicine, and nourishment. The integration of wild edibles into the garden can enhance the diversity and sustainability of your food system, while also giving you access to nutrient-dense plants that are often overlooked. Wild edibles are plants that grow naturally in the wild, without the need for cultivation. They are often more resilient than domesticated crops and require less care and attention. Native Americans were skilled at identifying these plants and incorporating them into their gardens, where they thrived alongside more traditional crops. Examples of wild edibles include dandelion, wild mustard, nettles, and lamb's quarters. Dandelion, for instance, is an incredibly nutritious plant that can be eaten from root to flower. It's rich in vitamins A, C, and K, as well as calcium, iron, and potassium. Wild mustard, another common plant, is high in vitamin C and has a peppery flavor, making it a great addition to salads or cooked dishes. These plants were often foraged by Native Americans and were an important part of their diet, providing food during times when crops were not yet ready to harvest. Today, gardeners can grow wild edibles alongside their traditional crops to diversify their food sources and enhance the overall health of the garden. Many wild edibles, like dandelion and lamb's quarters, are highly nutritious and can be used in a variety of culinary dishes. Not only do they provide fresh, local food, but they also help create a more biodiverse garden. Incorporating these plants into your garden can improve soil health, attract pollinators, and provide natural pest control. By learning about and incorporating wild edibles into your garden, you can not only expand your culinary horizons, but also follow in the footsteps of Native American gardeners who understood the importance of working with nature to provide for their communities. 12. Heirloom varieties and seed saving. For Native Americans, farming was about more than just planting crops. It was about stewardship and ensuring the survival of their food sources for generations to come. One of the most powerful ways they achieved this was through heirloom seed saving. Heirloom varieties are plants that have been passed down through generations, carefully saved and cultivated to maintain their specific traits. For Native Americans, these heirlooms were the foundation of their gardens, providing the food, medicine, and materials they needed to survive. Saving seeds was a way of ensuring that the crops that worked well in a specific region were preserved. The corn varieties grown by Native Americans, for example, were carefully selected for their ability to thrive in the local climate. They had varieties for every type of soil, altitude, and weather condition. Beans, squash, and other crops were similarly selected and saved, creating a network of crops that were well adapted to the local environment. Heirloom seeds were not just about practicality. They were also deeply connected to cultural traditions. Many Native American communities had their own varieties of corn or beans, each with its own unique story and significance. These crops were often used in ceremonies, shared during feasts, and passed down through families as a part of their cultural heritage. Today, heirloom seed saving is making a resurgence as gardeners realize the value of preserving genetic diversity and maintaining control over their food sources. By saving seeds from your own garden, you can ensure that you have a steady supply of the best adapted plants for your region. This practice also helps preserve traditional plant varieties that are at risk of being lost in the age of industrial farming. By saving seeds and growing heirloom varieties, you're not only ensuring the survival of your favorite plants, but also connecting to a long tradition of Native American gardeners who knew that the key to a thriving food system was to protect and pass down the seeds that sustained them. 13. Native American composting. Composting is an essential practice for gardeners today, but it's not a new concept. Native Americans were masters of soil health and understood the importance of recycling organic matter back into the earth. Before modern composting techniques were even developed, Indigenous peoples had a natural composting system that revolved around using plant matter, fish, and animal waste to nourish the soil. In many Native American gardens, fish were often buried with crops to provide them with essential nutrients. The fish decomposed, enriching the soil with nitrogen and phosphorus, vital elements for plant growth. In fact, the practice of burying fish remains a popular method of soil enrichment today, particularly for crops like corn. The Native Americans were skilled at recognizing the connection between plants and animals, using what nature provided them to enhance the fertility of the soil. Composting with organic materials, such as leaves, straw, and manure, was also common in Native American gardening. This organic matter was broken down over time, creating rich, dark soil known as humus, which improved both soil structure and water retention. The decomposition process not only nourished plants, but also helped to prevent soil erosion and promote healthy ecosystems. Today, you can replicate these traditional practices in your own garden by composting food scraps, yard waste, and other organic materials. Like the Native Americans, you can combine plant-based materials like leaves and grass clippings with animal-based materials, such as manure or fish waste. Using compost in your garden has numerous benefits. It improves soil texture, increases microbial activity, and provides nutrients for your plants. A simple compost pile or bin can work wonders. Add layers of green materials, like vegetable scraps and grass clippings, with brown materials, like leaves and straw. Turn it regularly to help the decomposition process, and in a few months, you'll have nutrient-rich compost to feed your garden. By adopting composting practices that Native Americans have used for generations, you not only build healthier soil, but also embrace an environmentally sustainable way of gardening that respects the natural cycles of the earth. 14. Natural pest control methods. In the age of modern pesticides and chemical insecticides, it's easy to forget that Native American gardeners thrived without the need for synthetic solutions. The key to their success was understanding the delicate balance of nature and using natural methods to control pests. Native Americans didn't just plant crops. They created ecosystems that were designed to work in harmony with the environment, including natural pest management. One of the most effective techniques was companion planting. Native Americans understood which plants could help protect one another from pests. For instance, they planted beans and corn together because beans are known to repel insects that could harm corn, such as the corn borer. Similarly, marigolds were often planted alongside vegetables to deter aphids and other pests. These flowers produce a strong scent that repels insects, making them a natural form of pest control. Herbs were another important part of Native American gardens. Many herbs not only served culinary and medicinal purposes, but also helped keep pests at bay. Plants like sage, garlic, and mint were frequently used for their pest-repelling qualities. Sage, for example, is known to deter pests like cabbage moths, while garlic can keep aphids and ants away. These herbs were planted strategically throughout the garden to create a natural barrier against harmful insects. In addition to companion planting, Native Americans also employed physical barriers to protect their crops. For example, they used woven fences or netting to keep larger pests, like rabbits and deer, away from their gardens. These barriers were often made from natural materials, such as branches or reeds, which made them sustainable and in harmony with the environment. Modern gardeners can benefit greatly from these natural pest control methods by planting pest-repellent herbs, using physical barriers, and practicing companion planting. You can reduce or eliminate the need for chemical pesticides. This creates a healthier, more sustainable garden that works with nature rather than against it. Much like Native Americans, you'll find that your garden becomes a place where plants, insects, and wildlife coexist in balance. 15. The power of sunflowers. Sunflowers are a beautiful addition to any garden, but they're not just pretty to look at. They also serve a variety of practical purposes. Native Americans recognized the versatility of sunflowers and incorporated them into their gardens for both their beauty and utility. The sunflower's bright yellow blooms weren't just a symbol of summer. They were a key part of sustainable gardening practices that still hold value today. Historically, Native Americans used sunflowers for more than just decoration. They cultivated them for their seeds, which were eaten as a food source and used to make oil. The seeds provided a nutritious, high-protein food that could be roasted or ground into flour. Sunflower seeds were also used medicinally for their healing properties, particularly in treating skin ailments and digestive issues. Even the stalks of sunflowers had a purpose. They were used as a natural building material for tools, mats, and baskets. Sunflowers also played a critical role in pest management. Native Americans planted them near their crops to attract beneficial insects, such as bees, which helped with pollination. The towering stalks of sunflowers create a natural barrier that can protect other plants from the wind and prevent soil erosion. Their large, broad leaves act as a shade for smaller plants, helping them stay cool during the hottest parts of the day. In modern gardens, sunflowers are still incredibly useful. As a companion plant, they can help protect other crops from pests and provide food for pollinators. The sunflower's deep roots also help break up compacted soil, improving its structure and drainage. Additionally, growing sunflowers alongside vegetables like tomatoes and peppers can provide a natural windbreak, which is especially important in windy climates. For gardeners looking to add both beauty and function to their plots, sunflowers are an excellent choice. Whether you're growing them for their seeds, their ability to attract pollinators, or their role in creating a more diverse and sustainable garden, sunflowers are an invaluable addition. In a way, they symbolize the balance that Native Americans sought to maintain in their gardens: functional, beautiful, and in harmony with nature. 16. Edible landscaping. Imagine stepping into your garden and finding that every plant you see isn't just beautiful, it's also edible. This concept, known as edible landscaping, was a practice Native Americans embraced long before it became a trend in modern gardening. By combining aesthetic beauty with practical function, they created gardens that were both nourishing and visually appealing. Edible landscaping is all about integrating food-producing plants into the overall design of your garden, rather than relegating them to isolated rows or raised beds. Native Americans used this approach by planting fruits, vegetables, herbs, and edible flowers among ornamental plants. This approach made their gardens not only bountiful, but also diverse in appearance. Bright flowers like nasturtiums, marigolds, and sunflowers would mix with more practical crops such as beans, squash, and corn. These plants added color, texture, and interest to the garden, while also providing food, medicine, and materials. One of the key aspects of Native American edible landscaping was the principle of working with nature. Rather than creating artificial barriers between ornamental and edible plants, Native Americans blended them together in a way that mimicked natural ecosystems. This approach allowed plants to thrive together, creating a healthy, balanced garden that provided food, shelter, and beauty in equal measure. Modern gardeners can follow this example by incorporating fruit trees, berry bushes, and herbs into their landscapes. Instead of having a lawn full of grass that requires constant mowing and chemical treatments, you can replace it with a variety of edible plants. Imagine harvesting fresh herbs for cooking from your front yard or picking berries from a bush just outside your window. Edible landscaping doesn't just save you money on groceries, it also encourages you to reconnect with the land in a meaningful way. Native American gardens were a perfect blend of practicality and beauty, where every plant had a purpose. By adopting edible landscaping in your own garden, you can create a space that nourishes both the body and the soul, honoring the tradition of growing food in harmony with nature. 17. Native planting schemes for soil fertility. In Native American gardens, soil fertility was never taken for granted. They understood that healthy soil was the foundation of a successful garden and worked tirelessly to maintain its richness. One of the most effective ways they did this was through carefully planned planting schemes that ensured the soil remained fertile year after year. Native Americans practiced a variety of methods to improve and maintain soil fertility, many of which are still used in modern gardening today. One of the most notable techniques was the use of nitrogen-fixing plants. Beans, a staple crop in many Native American gardens, have the unique ability to fix nitrogen from the air and add it to the soil. This is crucial because nitrogen is an essential nutrient for plant growth, but it can be depleted from the soil over time. By planting beans alongside crops like corn and squash, Native Americans not only provided support for the plants, but also enriched the soil naturally, reducing the need for artificial fertilizers. Another method that Native Americans used to promote soil fertility was crop rotation. By planting different crops in the same space each year, they prevented the soil from becoming depleted of specific nutrients. For example, after harvesting corn, the soil would be left to rest and recover before beans or squash were planted in the same area. This practice ensured that the soil remained nutrient-rich and capable of supporting healthy plant growth. In addition to crop rotation, Native American gardeners often used organic matter like compost, fish, and animal manure to enrich the soil. Fish were especially prized for their ability to add valuable nutrients to the soil, which is why they were often buried with crops like corn. The organic matter would break down slowly, providing a steady supply of nutrients throughout the growing season. For modern gardeners, these traditional techniques provide an excellent way to promote soil fertility naturally. By planting nitrogen-fixing crops, rotating crops, and adding organic matter to your soil, you can create a self-sustaining garden that improves the health of your soil while reducing the need for synthetic fertilizers. Just as Native Americans learned to work with the land, we can continue to honor and preserve the soil that sustains us. 18. Terracing and erosion control. Terracing, the practice of creating stepped levels in the landscape, is an ancient agricultural technique that was used extensively by Native American farmers, particularly in regions with hilly or sloping terrain. Terraces helped prevent soil erosion, retain water, and create more productive growing areas on otherwise challenging landscapes. This technique not only protected the land, but also ensured the sustainability of crops over time. In many areas, especially in the American Southwest, Native Americans built intricate terraces along the sides of hills or mountains. These terraces were designed to catch rainwater and allow it to slowly seep into the soil, preventing runoff and erosion. By slowing down the flow of water, terraces created a more stable environment for plants to grow, even in areas with little rainfall. Native American terraces were often built with local materials such as stone, dirt, and wood, and they were carefully designed to fit the contours of the land. The terraces themselves created microclimates, allowing for better temperature control and moisture retention. The deeper the terrace, the more moisture it could retain, making it possible to grow crops even during dry spells. For modern gardeners, the principles of terracing can still be applied, particularly if you live in an area with sloping land. Building terraces in your garden can help prevent soil erosion, promote better water retention, and increase the productivity of your plants. You can create small terraces using materials like stone, brick, or wood, or you can use simple earth mounds for the same effect. Terracing not only enhances the aesthetics of your garden, but also contributes to its long-term health. By mimicking the techniques used by Native American gardeners, you can create a more resilient, productive garden that is better able to withstand environmental challenges and support a wide variety of plants. 19. Preparing for drought. Drought is a reality that many gardeners face, particularly in regions with hot, dry summers. Native American gardeners, who often lived in arid and semi-arid climates, understood the importance of preparing for drought long before modern irrigation systems became widespread. Their strategies for drought management weren't just about conserving water, they were about selecting the right plants, designing resilient systems, and creating a garden that could thrive even in the driest conditions. One of the primary techniques Native Americans used to prepare for drought was selecting drought-tolerant crops. Crops like squash, beans, and corn are well suited to dry conditions, as they have evolved to conserve water and grow well with minimal moisture. For example, corn has deep roots that can access moisture far below the soil surface, while squash vines have large, spreading leaves that help shade the soil and reduce water evaporation. Beans, on the other hand, are nitrogen-fixing plants that require less fertilizer and, once established, can thrive in low-water environments. In addition to selecting drought-tolerant crops, Native American farmers practiced efficient irrigation techniques. One of the most effective was the use of check dams, or small earthen barriers that could trap water and direct it into the soil. This technique helped slow the flow of water, allowing it to be absorbed and reducing runoff. The practice of dry farming, in which crops were planted in such a way that they relied primarily on rainwater, was also common. Native Americans made sure to plant their crops in well-prepared, fertile soil, which could hold moisture more effectively. Mulching was another technique that helped conserve water. By covering the soil with organic materials like straw, leaves, or grass, they created a protective barrier that reduced evaporation and helped retain moisture. Modern gardeners can still benefit from this method by applying a thick layer of mulch around plants, which will keep the soil cool and moist, even during the hottest months of the year. Incorporating drought-tolerant plants, practicing mulching, and managing water efficiently are still essential techniques in today's gardening world. As droughts become more common due to climate change, the lessons of Native American gardeners can help modern gardeners conserve water, protect their plants, and ensure a successful harvest. By building resilience into your garden and focusing on water-efficient practices, you can face dry conditions with confidence. 20. Growing your own medicine. In the world of modern gardening, the focus is often on growing food. However, for Native Americans, gardens were also places of healing and wellness, where plants served as medicine as much as they did for sustenance. Herbs and other plants were an integral part of their daily lives, used to treat everything from common ailments to more serious health conditions. Growing your own medicinal plants connects you to these ancient traditions while offering a natural way to support your well-being. Native Americans relied on a vast array of plants for medicinal purposes. For example, echinacea, known today as a powerful immune-boosting herb, was used by many tribes to treat colds and infections. Similarly, sage was used as both a cleansing herb and for its antibacterial properties. Native American gardeners understood that different plants had different healing properties, and they often cultivated a variety of medicinal herbs that could be used in teas, poultices, and tinctures. One plant commonly grown in Native American gardens for its medicinal properties is peppermint. This fragrant herb was used to ease digestive issues, relieve headaches, and soothe sore muscles. It was often brewed into a tea or applied directly to the skin in poultice form. Lavender, another favorite herb, was used not only for its calming fragrance, but also for its ability to reduce anxiety and promote restful sleep. Growing your own medicinal plants can be incredibly empowering. By selecting herbs that are known for their healing properties, you create a personal pharmacy right in your garden. Some of the most popular medicinal plants include echinacea, peppermint, chamomile, lavender, and calendula, each with its own unique benefits. For example, chamomile is widely known for its calming effects and is often used to aid sleep, while calendula's anti-inflammatory properties make it perfect for treating skin irritations. Modern gardeners can follow in Native American footsteps by designing their gardens to include medicinal plants. Whether it's creating a dedicated herbal garden or integrating medicinal herbs into an existing vegetable plot, there are many ways to grow plants that not only look beautiful, but can help treat minor health issues or promote general wellness. By cultivating medicinal plants in your own garden, you're tapping into a centuries-old tradition of natural healing that honors the Earth's ability to provide. In a world increasingly focused on pharmaceutical solutions, growing your own medicine offers a return to simplicity, sustainability, and self-reliance, values that Native Americans have embraced for generations. 21. Preserving the harvest the old-fashioned way. In a time before refrigerators, freezers, and canning jars, Native Americans had their own ingenious methods for preserving food. The art of preservation was essential to their survival, as it allowed them to enjoy the fruits of their labor long after the harvest season had ended. Today, as we look for ways to reduce food waste and become more self-sufficient, these age-old preservation techniques are more valuable than ever. One of the most common preservation methods used by Native Americans was drying. Many crops, such as beans, corn, and squash, were dried to be stored for later use. To dry beans, Native Americans would spread them out in the sun or over a fire to remove excess moisture. This process allowed the beans to be stored for months or even years, providing a reliable food source during the colder months when fresh food was scarce. Corn was often dried and ground into flour, which could be used for making bread, porridge, or tortillas. This dried corn, known as hominy, was a staple food in many Native American diets. Smoking was another popular preservation technique. Fish, meat, and even certain vegetables were smoked over open fires to extend their shelf life. The smoke acted as a natural preservative, preventing spoilage while imparting a distinct flavor to the food. Smoked fish, such as salmon, was often dried as well, creating a protein-rich food that could be eaten year-round. For fruits and berries, Native Americans used a method called pounding and drying. Berries like elderberries, chokecherries, and strawberries were mashed, sometimes mixed with other ingredients like honey, and then dried in the sun or on racks. This preserved the fruits for use in the winter months when fresh fruit was unavailable. Today, you can replicate many of these traditional preservation methods in your own garden. Drying, smoking, and fermenting are all excellent ways to preserve your harvest without relying on modern technology. Drying herbs, fruits, and vegetables is simple and can be done using a dehydrator or by air drying in a warm, dry place. Smoking can be done at home using a smoker or even over a simple wood fire, and fermentation offers a flavorful way to preserve vegetables and fruits while adding beneficial probiotics. By adopting these traditional preservation methods, you not only reduce food waste, but also reconnect with ancient practices that allowed Native American communities to thrive in even the harshest conditions. Preserving your harvest the old-fashioned way ensures that you can enjoy the fruits of your labor long after the growing season has passed. 22. Understanding your climate. One of the most fundamental aspects of Native American gardening was the intimate knowledge of the land and climate in which they lived. They knew the rhythms of the seasons, the local weather patterns, and the best times to plant, water, and harvest. This understanding of climate played a central role in their ability to grow crops that thrived in their specific environments. For modern gardeners, learning to understand and work with the local climate can make a world of difference in the success of your garden. Before planting, Native Americans took careful note of the environment around them. They observed the types of plants that grew naturally in their region and used this knowledge to inform their gardening practices. For example, certain types of corn were better suited to high altitudes, while others thrived in warmer, lowland areas. By selecting crops that were adapted to the local climate, Native Americans ensured that they were planting the most resilient and productive varieties for their region. Climate also influenced the timing of planting and harvesting. Native Americans followed the natural cues of the seasons, like the first frost or the appearance of certain flowers in bloom, to know when it was time to plant or harvest. This observation-based system worked with the natural rhythms of the environment, ensuring that crops were planted at the right time to avoid damage from frost or drought. They also recognized the importance of microclimates, specific areas within the larger garden or landscape that might be warmer or cooler, more or less shaded, and better suited to certain plants. For modern gardeners, understanding your climate is just as important. The USDA Plant Hardiness Zone Map is a valuable tool for gardeners, as it helps determine which plants are best suited for your region. Similarly, keeping track of frost dates, average rainfall, and sunlight hours will help you plan your garden more effectively. It's also helpful to know the specific microclimates in your yard, such as areas that receive more sun or wind, or places that stay cool and shaded. By learning to read your local environment and adjust your gardening practices accordingly, you can mimic the wisdom of Native American gardeners and create a garden that flourishes, no matter where you live. Gardening is a reflection of its climate, and by working with nature rather than against it, you can grow a productive and sustainable garden that is in tune with the land around you. 23. Wildcrafting and sustainable harvesting. Wildcrafting, or foraging for wild food, is a practice that has been essential to Native American cultures for centuries. It involves gathering plants, berries, nuts, and herbs from the wild, rather than relying solely on cultivated crops. This connection to the land provided not only food, but also medicine, materials for tools, and cultural significance. The practice of wildcrafting also emphasizes sustainability, gathering only what is needed and ensuring that the plants are not harmed in the process. Today, this practice is making a resurgence as more people look for ways to reconnect with nature and live more sustainably. Native Americans were experts at wildcrafting. They understood which plants were edible, which had medicinal properties, and which could be used for materials like baskets or clothing. Wildcrafting was not just a means of survival, it was a practice that reflected respect for the environment. Native Americans harvested plants in a way that ensured they would continue to thrive in the wild, leaving enough behind for the plants to regenerate. They also paid attention to the natural cycles of the land, gathering only at the right time to ensure the plant's continued growth. Modern gardeners can learn much from this sustainable approach to harvesting. First and foremost, it's important to be educated about the plants in your area. There are many wild edibles, such as dandelion, purslane, and elderberry, that grow in local gardens, forests, and fields. These plants can provide nutrient-dense food and medicine, often with little to no cultivation. However, just as Native Americans did, it's crucial to approach wildcrafting with respect. Harvest only what you need, leave enough for the plants to regenerate, and avoid over-harvesting. In some areas, certain plants may be protected by law, so it's essential to research local regulations before foraging. Sustainable harvesting also involves being mindful of the ecosystem. Wildcrafting should never disrupt the balance of the environment. Avoid taking plants that are endangered or that play a vital role in supporting other wildlife. Additionally, it's important to be aware of the impact that your actions may have on the surrounding environment. Compacting the soil, damaging plant roots, or leaving behind invasive species can all harm the land. By practicing wildcrafting in a sustainable way, modern gardeners can honor the wisdom of Native Americans and live more in harmony with the land. Wildcrafting not only provides food and medicine, but also deepens our connection to nature and the ancient practices that sustained Indigenous peoples for thousands of years. 24. Celebrating the harvest. For Native Americans, the harvest was much more than just a time of abundance. It was a sacred and joyous occasion. Harvest celebrations were an integral part of many Native American cultures, bringing communities together to honor the earth's generosity and give thanks for the food that would sustain them through the winter. These harvest festivals often included feasts, ceremonies, music, dancing, and rituals that symbolized the deep connection between people and the land. One of the most famous Native American harvest festivals is the Thanksgiving celebration, which was rooted in the traditions of the Wampanoag people and other tribes. For Native Americans, this celebration wasn't about simply gathering crops, it was about acknowledging the interconnectedness of all living things. The harvest was a time to show gratitude for the earth's bounty, for the animals that provided food, and for the strength and wisdom of the community. In some cultures, harvest ceremonies also involved giving thanks to the spirits and ancestors, recognizing that the ability to grow food was a gift that had been passed down through generations. Today, modern gardeners can draw inspiration from these harvest celebrations by creating their own traditions. Celebrating the harvest not only fosters a sense of gratitude, but also strengthens our connection to the food we grow and eat. Whether you're gathering vegetables, herbs, or fruits, taking time to reflect on the hard work that went into cultivating your garden makes the harvest even more meaningful. To celebrate your harvest, consider hosting a garden party with friends and family where you can share meals made from the fruits of your labor. Cook a feast of seasonal dishes that highlight the bounty of your garden. Roasted vegetables, homemade jams, or fresh salads with herbs you've grown. You can also host a ceremony to honor the land, the seeds, and the work that brought your garden to life. Harvest festivals are also a great time to reflect on your gardening journey and set goals for the future. How can you improve your soil, plan your garden, or preserve your harvest? What lessons have you learned, and what would you like to try next season? By celebrating the harvest in the tradition of Native Americans, we honor their wisdom and the timeless practice of living in harmony with the land. It's a reminder that gardening isn't just about growing food. It's about building a relationship with the earth, and that relationship deserves to be celebrated. 25. Using wild berries in your garden. Incorporating wild berries like elderberry, serviceberry, and huckleberry into your garden is a fantastic way to reconnect with nature while enjoying nutritious and delicious fruit. These wild berries have been a staple in Native American diets for centuries, prized not only for their exceptional taste, but also for their medicinal properties. Growing wild berry bushes in your garden can provide you with a sustainable, low-maintenance food source, while also adding beauty and biodiversity to your landscape. Native American tribes have long relied on wild berries for both food and medicine. Elderberries were used to make syrups and remedies to boost immunity and fight off colds, while serviceberries were prized for their sweet, nutritious fruit, often used in pies or dried for long-term storage. These berries were not only consumed, but also used to create healing tinctures, teas, and poultices. The relationship between Native Americans and these wild plants goes beyond harvesting. It's rooted in respect for the earth, with an understanding that taking only what is needed ensures the continuation of these valuable resources for generations to come. Planting wild berries in your garden is a great way to bring some of this traditional wisdom into your modern gardening practice. The key is to select berry varieties that are well suited to your local climate and soil conditions. Elderberries thrive in moist, well-drained soil and can handle both sun and partial shade. Serviceberries, on the other hand, do well in drier conditions with good drainage and full sun exposure. By choosing berry bushes that are native to your area, you're ensuring that they will adapt well to your environment with minimal care, making them a low-maintenance and resilient addition to your garden. Caring for wild berry bushes is relatively easy. Most wild berries require little attention once they're established, but they do benefit from regular watering, especially during dry spells. Mulching around the base of the plants can help retain moisture and prevent weeds. Prune them in early spring to remove any dead or damaged growth, encouraging new, healthy shoots. As for harvesting, wild berries typically ripen in late summer or early fall. Elderberries should be harvested when the berries are dark and fully ripe, while serviceberries are ready when they turn a deep purple or red and become soft to the touch. Always harvest gently to avoid damaging the plant. Wild berries are perfect for preserving. Elderberries can be dried or made into syrups, jams, or wine, while serviceberries can be used for pies, jellies, or simply enjoyed fresh. These berries aren't just a delicious treat. They also carry on the legacy of Native American wisdom and sustainability, bringing health and connection to nature right into your backyard. As we wrap up our exploration of Native American gardening hacks, we find ourselves reflecting on a rich history of innovation, sustainability, and deep respect for the earth. From the Three Sisters planting method to the use of natural fertilizers and the art of wildcrafting, Native American gardening techniques were not just about growing food. They were about creating balance, nurturing the land, and honoring the interconnections between plants, animals, and people. These gardening hacks offer more than just practical advice. They offer a philosophy for living in harmony with the environment. Native Americans understood that the land was not something to be conquered or controlled, but something to be cared for, respected, and worked with. This approach is still incredibly relevant today, as we face challenges such as climate change, soil depletion, and a growing disconnection from the natural world. Incorporating these age-old practices into our own gardens allows us to reconnect with nature and build a more sustainable, resilient future. Whether you're planting a garden to feed your family, creating a pollinator habitat, or learning to preserve your harvest, you are following in the footsteps of generations of indigenous gardeners who cultivated not only food, but a deeper connection to the earth. The beauty of these Native American gardening hacks is that they are simple, yet profound. They remind us that gardening isn't just about what we grow. It's about how we grow it and the relationships we build with the land. By using the techniques outlined in this guide, you're not only improving your gardening skills, but also contributing to a larger movement of sustainable, regenerative practices that honor the wisdom of the past. So, as you dig into the soil and plant your seeds, remember the lessons of Native American gardeners who came before us. With patience, respect, and a little bit of ancestral wisdom, you can grow a garden that not only thrives, but also honors the earth that nurtures it. Happy gardening!